I am New York City-based psychotherapist Nikita Banks, a licensed clinical social worker, and I am your host of the Black Therapist Podcast, formerly Black in Therapy. The Black Therapist Podcast is a place where we will discuss the unique issues people of color face when dealing with mental health issues and mental health diagnosis. You can listen to our show on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play. You can follow us on Instagram, the Black Therapist Podcast, or you can hit us up on our website and sign up for our mailing list at blacktherapistpodcast.com. Also, on our website, you can find the links to our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages. You can also email us show suggestions, general feedback, and any ideas that you have for, guests at blacktherapistpodcast@gmail.com. We have made it to the end of 2017. And this is a very emotional time for a lot of different people. For some people, it can be that the holiday seasons are upon us and they're having a hard time dealing with difficult relationships with family members, gathering through the holiday season with family members who they have difficult relationships with. I can identify with that. Also, anniversaries of deaths and birthdays of loved ones who have passed away. And just kind of seasonal affective disorder is also one of the reasons that people have issues with this time of the year. The change of the weather, the change in season, the coldness, and the lack of sunlight. And so all of these reasons impact us and our mental conditions in a negative way. And so for me, I figured that I would do the show this evening surrounding the death of a loved one. Because as I stated earlier in the season, that my father passed away and I've been dealing with kind of grieving his loss and what that looks like for me. But, this is the first Christmas that I will have that he's no longer here in a physical form. And his birthday is coming up. I believe it is 3 days after Christmas, which is kind of strange for me. But I never really had to remember when his birthday was because he was always here to remind me so that I didn't forget. And if I ever really want to hear his voice, like I have a message of him kind of reminding me of when his birthday was from last year and reminding me to give him a call on his birthday. And so I have some clients who are also going through the grieving process of losing parents. And I have some family members who, for us, December is a particularly precarious time because we've lost several family members during this time of the year. And so I figured that this was the perfect time for me to do this show on this subject. And so if you are going into the holiday season missing your loved one, I just want you to know that you're not alone and that it would best serve you to figure out what you need and how you need to be supported before the time comes so that you can deal with whatever you're feeling in the way that's the most appropriate for you. There is no one way to heal. And there's no one good reaction to dealing with the anniversary or a holiday season by yourself or dealing with a situation where you may be lonely or alone, missing your family members for whatever reason during the holiday season. So I want you to think about how you will celebrate, whether it's just celebrating yourself, whether it's you celebrating the life of that person, or whether it's you celebrating and honoring tradition. I lost my grandmother when I was fairly young. And so for Christmas and Thanksgiving, I always kind of stick to her menu for the holiday season because to me, that's a way of me honoring her and bringing her into the now and honoring what came before me and just kind of learning her recipes and feeding them to my family so that they become a part of our new traditions. And it's kind of my way of just kind of bringing her and keeping her memory alive in my heart. So the first thing that I would suggest is that you could find a way to honor your loved one's memory in the best way you know how. That may be doing something that you guys used to do together, or watching a Christmas show that you watched together, or doing something that you know that they enjoyed, or learning something that they enjoyed. Just kind of honoring them in that way. As I mentioned prior, being introspective enough to ask for what you need. I believe that there are people who are around you who love you and want to be able to support you in whatever method you choose to use in your healing. And if you're able to kind of articulate that to them around you, then you'll find more often than not that they will rise up to meet you and rise up to meet your expectations. And so just kind of ask for what you need in this moment and time and space. And if all you need is quiet and peace and leave me alone, then you ask for that. And don't be afraid to mourn and scream and cry and feel your feelings and give yourself a time or a day to go through whatever it is that you need to go through in order for you to get through that day, because this is a very, very difficult time. Also, if therapeutic intervention is something that you've indulged in, if it's something that you've thought about, go. Because a lot of what I deal with in my practice is a lot of unresolved grief, and it can manifest itself in other ways and in other mental health diagnosis, and it can show up in ways that help stagnate your life and your thinking and your emotional development. And that's not what we want. So, I mean, if therapeutic intervention is part of what you think you need for your healing, then I suggest by all means go on Psychology Today and put your zip code in and find you a therapist that's culturally competent. Or call your insurance company and give them your zip code and ask for a therapist that's in network and start to do and what you need to do to focus on your healing, and let a professional help you if that's something that you are open to. Also, make sure that you drown yourself in self-care during that time. So if that is a mindfulness practice or a prayer or meditation, reading scripture, fasting, spiritual practice, indulging in art or creativity or ritualistic practice, identify something that you can physically do that can make yourself feel better and make the time go by. That may be helpful for you in focusing on your healing and your development and not so much on the loss. You know, death is something that's inevitable. It's something that we all have to go through once we, take on this physical form. It's a part of our human experience and it's a part of our human journey. And so just kind of keeping in mind that this is something that we all have to go through. This is a life that in a body that we're passing through this time, and we have to make the most of what we have while we're here. Honor that loved one's time and what they love to do and how they invested that time in you on the day that is their anniversary or the holidays or their birthdays. My father passing away, I don't know if I just told this story or not, but recently my uncle called me, and I guess because of this show, it ended up in his Instagram feed some sort of way, and he was like, oh, I saw, a therapist, black therapist. Are you a black therapist? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, yeah, I saw it on my Instagram feed, and I saw Banks, and I was like, I don't know no Banks, but I know my niece. Maybe that's my niece. And I opened it up, and I called the number, and sure enough, it was you. And to hear him on the phone sound like my dad, I know he looks similar to my father, and to hear his laughter and sound like my dad, and this is my father's birthday month and the holidays coming, it kind of made me sad, but it started to make me think of, okay, how am I going to deal with the holiday season as it comes with all of this emotional baggage? What exactly am I going to do to get myself through this season? And it was wonderful to hear my uncle, because the message that I got in what he was trying to say to me was that he was really proud of me and how far I had come and my accomplishments. And I just kind of took it as a message from my dad, just letting me know that he is proud of me. Although he's told me that a lot when he was alive, and that, he's still rooting for me. And so it started me thinking about how I was going to honor him. So in a conversation with my cousin, she's also lost both of her parents, she was basically saying, maybe you want to just get some balloons, or maybe you want to release them with notes, or you want to wear your favorite color, or get you a little glass of wine. Go drink your drink, and just kind of say a prayer and honor him in that way. And so I'm not sure if the drink and the prayer is going to go together with me. I mean, sometimes it does, but I am starting to think about what it is that I need and how I'm going to ask my family for support during this time. And I suggest that you guys, if you're dealing with an anniversary, you guys do that as well. Okay? So if you are struggling with the holidays and you are struggling with grief and you are struggling with some of the things that we talked about in today's show, just know that you are not alone, that there are a lot of people that are going to be having a hard time with you. And there are professionals and people in your circle who love you, who would love to help you through this time. You just have to sit back and think about what your needs are and how they can best be met and be supported by the people who are around you. You've listened to another episode of the Black Therapist Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Nikita Banks, licensed clinical social worker, and this is Black Therapist Podcast, formerly Black in Therapy. If you are looking for any information, any resources about today's show, or if you just want to drop a line and say hey and subscribe to our mailing list, you can do so at our website, blacktherapistpodcast.com. You can send us emails at blacktherapistpodcast@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because we want the show to grow as organically as we possibly can, and we cannot do that without you. Thank you for listening. Be well.